So, to summarize, that which has brought us into the financial squeeze we find ourselves in, summarizing, I mentioned the fire expenditures, the national economic effect on local businesses, retail and sales and payroll reductions, industrial slowdowns and layoffs, business closures, Lorraine County employees. All of these have led into the recent weeks, compounded with income tax revenue declining at the end of last year. That kind of shows you the picture that we got in a hurry. Now, to make up this shortfall, and that deficit is essentially in the $3 million range, that we have to reduce our expenditures based on expenditures of last year and the revenues we had for those, as well as the revenues we have available to us this year. Our auditor is predicting, based on all the economic indicators and early numbers, that our revenues this coming year are going to be about 4% below last year. So last year was, barely even with a 4% decrease the year before. So our revenues are continuing to decline overall. So we're going to cut out fireworks. That's already been taken care of. Flower baskets, of course, holiday lights in the square and Finwood Estates. I can't say that they will be eliminated, but they will be substantially reduced. We probably will limit those to what we can do during normal business hours with limited staff. The Apple Festival and the Band Appreciation, two wonderful events in our community and fundraisers for different organizations as well. We're going to have to limit our participation in those events to that which they can reimburse us. So we'll be scaling back our support, but to the extent that they can compensate for that, reimburse the city for that, we will continue in one form or another. Now, all of that, those are, you add up all the dollars of the last screen, and it's quickly go through that. We're probably talking in the neighborhood of $100,000. We have $2.9 million yet to go. So, here, and these are kind of in order of the reductions to be made, but also this is where the city spends its money. Most of our general fund, when you take out the police levy, most of our general fund expenditures are within the fire department, and that will see approximately a $900,000 reduction. Our layoffs, well, I'm not ready to announce this, and I do have a caveat at the top of the page. This is an initial estimate, is subject to further cuts and all those disclaimers, Mr. Young, so just make sure that's understood. But at this point, I think it's important for people to understand the magnitude of the circumstances we find ourselves in, and that is $900,000 short of something that is outside of our control. We're talking minimum staffing is likely to go from where it is at 14 down to 11, which will essentially have us at 2 stations from present 3 stations. Police department, similar, about $700,000 in cuts. The police department over the years has grown as much as anything with civilian support staff. It's less expensive, and they're able to be more focused on their narrower responsibilities, from dispatch to corrections to many other things that support the police officers. They will see a cut in the neighborhood of $700,000. The Parks Department, which is our 3rd highest department that we spend funds in, that will have to reduce by about $500,000. Because of our collective bargaining agreements, it requires us to lay off virtually all part-timers within the city before we lay off the full-time employees. And it's understandable, you can understand why that provision would be there. The dramatic consequence of that, however, is that our Parks Department relies extremely heavily, and that's an understatement, it relies entirely on part-time staff. If it's not part-time staff, so as not to pay them more than a full-timer, but the fact that they work in very small increments. They work 2 or 3 hours at a time to open up a rec center or to officiate ball games and things of that nature. So by not having those available to us, it'll discontinue our recreation programs in the Parks Department. I'll speak to that in a moment in our desire to respond to that. But we've already started discontinuing programs for the spring. We're in the process of refunding monies that have been prepaid, and we're not taking sign-ups anymore, at least for the spring programming. Now, miscellaneous general government, this is all the other departments, from the mayor and service director's office to the auditors, all the elected officials, the building department, engineering department, all these many departments. We hope through a combination of layoffs as well as employees agreeing to a reduced work week, which will be essentially a 10% pay reduction, that we can come up with in the neighborhood of $500,000 savings. So on that page, that's in the previous page about 100,000. We still have 600,000 to 700,000 yet to find. So there's still work to be done.